Hello, FedPhoenix fam. So, I try to publicly stay out of politics, right? Because it's really messy, and most of the time, up until the current regime, politics in general didn't involve like promoting genocide or major humanitarian crises, creating humanitarian crisis, really just disenfranchising everybody but the elite. That usually isn't a thing, like to that extreme that we're dealing with now. But I say that to say, I've been getting a lot of people asking me about this Ghislaine, whatever her name is, this Maxwell woman, the Epstein's girlfriend. Because a lot of people are at lows, or their loved one is at a low, and they're like, oh, well, this is a new thing. People at lows can get transferred to camps now, right? Yes and no. I mean, yes, there have always been people who come from lows or even FCIs and end up in camps. Generally, to meet the criteria to be at a camp, you have to be nonviolent crime. I'm not going to say victimless, because most white collar is in fact very victimed. But a lot of people typically at a camp are minimum security risk, minimum flight risk, people that don't have an extensive criminal history, nonviolent crimes, no sex offenders. That's a big one with camps, that kind of thing. People that aren't considered violent. Now, the exception for that is, like, one of the women I was at camp with had a double-digit sentence, right? I forget how long, maybe like 12 years. And she had already did the majority in higher security facilities, and her crime was violent and did have a victim. But her points, right? Her recidivism points, her pattern score points, and her lack of getting into trouble had reduced her housing designation points over the years. So eventually she was considered a person who would be safe to put at a camp, right? So a lot of people were telling me, well, if this Maxwell, woman is at a camp, is at Brian, then maybe my loved one can put in to get transferred to a camp as well, because their crimes are less horrendous, or they've done a larger portion of their time. Another thing to remember too is generally camps are people that have 10 years or less as a sentence, or less than 10 years left on their sentence. Typically, if you had a more than 10-year sentence, you're not going to get to a camp until you're down to like your last 5-6 years on your sentence. And of course, she has a huge sentence and has done very little of that time. And I tell people, we're not the rich. We're not. I mean, we see, I got people hit me up left and right going, oh, now's the time to file for clemency because everybody's getting it. And are they? Who do you personally know that got it? Because we can all name celebrities and millionaires and people that bought $1 million worth of the current regime's Bitcoin or whatever, that magically ended up getting pardons or clemency or their sentences commuted. But what regular people, even regular upper middle class white collar people, not just the poors, but, do you really see actually getting this privilege extended to them? So I say that to say, what is policy and what is practice are often not the same with the BOP. By BOP standards, by federal prison standards, is this Maxwell lady even eligible to be at a camp? Absolutely not. For a multitude of reasons, she does not qualify to be at a camp under any terms at this point. But she's there. And unfortunately, we're seeing a lot of that politically now, where the rules just don't apply to the wealthy elite. The rules don't apply if you can spend enough money. BOP policy now has loopholes for you if you are in the 1%. But do not find false hope and seeing the privilege and exemptions being made for these elite folks and think that applies to you or to me or to your loved one, because it just simply doesn't. And I hate to say that, and it shouldn't be like that at all. I mean, the very blatant disproportion and injustice is staggering, to say the least. But nonetheless, it is what it is, right? So I just wanted to make this video to let you know, because, some people have said, well, my loved one is at a low and their crime was far less heinous, far less victims, not even violent. They should be able to go to a low, right? Or a minimum, a camp, right? If Grand Prairie, Texas, who does a designation and computation center for federal inmates, has not determined they can go to a camp, that's not going to change because she got to go to a camp. And, just for, the sake of conversation, I see a lot of people online going, well, they put her in the camp, so they can Epstein her. I don't foresee that. That would be a really short-sighted, reckless move, and ultimately it further incriminates certain parties. However, if she agrees to do a tell-all and leave certain names out of it, I could see her getting a pardon on the basis that she was, instrumental in convicting or exposing all these people, right? Except for the one she's paid to shut up about. Of course, they're going to leave that out. And now the people that have been saying certain things are very obvious to 99% of us, the 1% that are still like, no, 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 not my dear leader, will then now have the conversation piece to say, well, we knew the whole time this person was completely innocent, and Maxwell, she proved it. If you know anything about this woman and her lack of morality, her lack of principle, her lack of dignity, her lack of anything likable or honorable, you would know very well that her testimony is going to largely reflect special interests that she's been paid to protect. I mean, it is what it is. And a blind man can see that. And I'm not going to get into the whole this party, that party, blah, blah, blah. My thing is people are people. People deserve to be treated fairly, equally, with dignity. Predators should not be celebrated. Predators should not be enabled. They should not be given special leeway or mercies that aren't given to non-predators. Like, that's really crazy to me. I think that people are entitled to have a reasonable quality of life. Incarcerated persons, free persons, me, you, my, the people in my community who call me to help them find resources that can no longer get assistance, and these are working people mostly, with help on a utility shutoff because that funding no longer exists, thanks to the current regime. The many stories that we're all being pummeled with of people that are losing 100-year-old family businesses and whatever as a result of the current regime. I don't think these things are okay. I don't think they're right. And I think when you see an injustice, if you can change it, right? Of course, most injustices we don't have that power over. So if you can't change it with your hands, I think the least you can do is hate it in your heart. And the least you can do, and you're almost obligated to do, is be a voice for those who need to be represented, for those who can't speak for themselves, or those who, while speaking for themselves, aren't heard. You know what I mean? So with that, let's be kind to each other. You can be the good you want to see in the world, right? So, and people are people. But just to reiterate, no, there's not going to be any special wave of people getting transferred from mediums and lows to camps as a result of the precedent of one person being clearly, wrongly, and out of context being transferred to one as a political favor, obviously. So with that, good day, God bless. I do have a different Cash App now, so if you do decide to donate to the channel or, assist me with my own personal, we all have our struggles. The Cash App is different. The new Cash App will be in the description, as well as my Venmo, my PayPal, whatever. If anybody wants to, buy me a coffee or, just kick in a little bit and make my struggle a little less difficult. But, and we're up to like 460, I think, subscribers. So we're almost at the halfway mark to potentially being monetized. And I'm super, super excited about that. And I thank you so much, everyone who subscribed. You have no idea how much it means to me. And yeah, that's where we're at. So yeah, just to clarify, Maxwell being sent to a camp in complete violation of BOP policy does not mean that anyone else will be, under similar or even less circumstances. So, unfortunately. So, with that, good day. God bless.